commentary.
So, picture this, right? It's 2:00 a.m.
Okay.
You are sitting at a red light. You are sitting at a red light. There is not a soul for miles. So you stop, you wait, and then a car pulls up next to you, barely even pauses, and just rolls right through.
And you just sit there feeling like, an absolute sucker for following the rules.
Exactly. Now magnify that feeling by 1,000, because that is the reality of running a business where you are, dotting every I and crossing every T, while your competition just treats regulations like loose suggestions.
They are moving faster.
Right. They're moving faster, and they're eating your lunch because of it.
Yeah. That tension right there is exactly what we are looking at today. We're doing a deep dive into a text titled, How to Compete When Others Cut Corners. And I will be honest, this is not your standard sterile HR ethics training.
No, not at all. It's surprisingly gritty. It accepts a premise that makes most compliance officers sweat. The idea that sometimes strict adherence to the rules is a competitive disadvantage.
It is. The source actually calls this concept social defaults.
Right. It's about reading the room. Because in some industries, loose compliance is just the norm.
It is the baseline.
Yeah, the baseline. So if you insist on playing by the book when everyone else is cutting corners, you aren't just being good, you are slow. And in this market, slow is dead.
Which is a terrifying thought for anyone trying to build a career, honestly. But the source makes this cynical, fascinating point about why people actually get away with it.
A public memory aspect.
Exactly. It isn't just that these people are sneaky, it's that public memory is incredibly short. It is the whole winner's right history effect.
You see this all the time. You read biographies of these massive industry titans, and the narrative is always about, their vision and their grit.
They conveniently leave out the regulatory corners they cut in the early days.
Precisely. The argument here is that once you win, once you actually achieve that power, the misconduct often just stops mattering. It fades into the background noise of success.
However, and I do need to put on my risk manager hat here, survivorship bias is very real. For every tycoon who scrubbed their past clean, there are 10 careers that ended in a massive fireball because of one bad decision.
So how do you tell the difference? As a strategist, how do you distinguish between a calculated risk and a completely fatal shortcut?
Well, that's the core of the framework we're looking at today. If you are going to navigate that gray area, you don't just wing it. You need a highly specific strategy. And the text breaks this down into 3 phases.
First up is assessment.
Right. Which sounds obvious, but I think most people entirely skip this step.
They just focus on the upside.
Exactly. The text says you have to stare directly at the worst-case scenario. If this goes wrong, is it just an embarrassing fine, or is it fatal to the company? You have to know the actual cost of getting caught.
And once you assess that, you move to the second phase, which is preparation. Do not wait until the subpoena arrives to figure out what you're going to say.
Yes, having your narrative ready before you even step into the gray area.
I loved this part of the text, because if you are questioned, you shouldn't be stammering. You should have a defensible, logical reason already locked and loaded.
But the third rule, this is the one that actually makes this a viable strategy rather than just reckless behavior. It is the concept of temporality.
This was the biggest aha moment for me. The idea that non-compliance can absolutely never be a permanent state.
Think of it like holding your breath. You might need to do it to swim under an obstacle.
Right, to get past a barrier.
Yes, but if you try to live underwater, you drown. The text is very explicit here. If you bend a rule to get an advantage, you must be working immediately to get back to solid ground.
So you take the shortcut to win the deal, but then you use the resources from that deal to retroactively fix the compliance issue. You do not stay in the gray area.
You work deliberately towards safety. The danger isn't necessarily the act itself, it's the duration. The longer you stay in that vulnerable position, the higher the probability of taking a fatal blow.
Get out as soon as you can. That is the mantra.
It's the only sustainable strategy. Rigid adherence without flexibility leaves you stuck at the red light at 2:00 a.m. But long-term non-compliance is just a ticking time bomb.
You have to know when to stop. And the text wraps up with a quote from Baltasar Gracian that nails this dynamic perfectly.
Ah, yes. Know how to withdraw before your advantage turns into loss.
The real skill isn't finding the loophole. The skill is knowing exactly when to close it.
That is the ultimate balance.
So here is a provocative thought to carry into your next big project or negotiation. Are you currently holding a position, maybe a shortcut you took that was supposed to be temporary? And have you simply forgotten to withdraw to safety?
Definitely something you want to check on before it's too late.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.